it's so weird because no one traditionally goes in a straight line to get into tech. So, I mean, I went through graphic design and psychology, but in order to be in tech, unless you're just totally like pigeonholed and you're myopic in what you want to do, which is totally possible. Where like if you just want to do engineering, all you know is engineering. But in design, you have to know a little bit about technology. You have to know a little bit about business, psychology, anthropology, sociology, all these things that I could go on and on, that you have to be like a Renaissance person. And it's impossible to say, oh, I know everything, because the field is constantly evolving, but also no one's like, up until recently, there wasn't any undergraduate education in this field. And now there's beginning to be undergraduate education, but even then it gets even worse because the imposter syndrome can now start earlier. Like, and so I think there's a level of expectation that has been created somehow through society, like Silicon Valley, like the HBO TV show is not that much of an exaggeration, just like Portlandia isn't that much of
Yeah.
an exaggeration. And it's just crazy. So imagine trying to be an actor or actress in LA. Well, I was living in San Francisco after graduating, and it doesn't matter how good you are at what you do or how good you feel about what you're doing. There's someone younger than you, smarter than you, that invites you to, that's very nice to you and invites you to their yacht party because they have 3 yachts. And I'm just like, it's not about money. It's just like they are successful and they seem so confident that you're like, if I could be a third as confident as they are, then I'd be a lucky man, you know?
And you mentioned that you noticed that, so many people have it as well. It's not just like everyone almost feels like they're the only one that's going through it. This happens with anxiety, this happens with depression, this happens with everything. It's like I'm the only one going through this, and we get very focused on our experience. But, one of the benefits of being a career coach is that I see that everyone is like struggling in some way, shape, or form. Maybe you have your career together, but your relationship isn't great. Maybe you have your relationship together, but your career isn't great. Maybe you have, any number of different things that are pressing on you, or bad parents, or whatever the thing might be. And so I'm curious, in your view, do you still feel like it's kind of, something that you're going through? Do you notice that it's like you're not alone in this? What's been your experience?
So I now believe in my heart that people also experience it. I always knew in my head that people experienced it, but you have to kind of believe in your heart and your head for it to click. Um, I feel like it's a chronic condition that flares up. And right now, I'm really grateful to be in a period where it's not flaring up, but I know that within the next month or so, it's probably going to flare up. I have certain things coming up in my professional life. But because I relate to this feeling, this condition, this whatever syndrome, whatever you want to call it, I relate to it differently. I'm not afraid of it anymore. So like the way I think about it is kind of funny. I think about this in the shower. I have all these shower thoughts. So in Jurassic Park, Chris Pratt's character is in charge of the Velociraptors,
Mm-hmm.
and he like I'm gonna kind of reenact this for a second. So he has like the Velociraptor coming, and he like stares at it, and he's like, "Whoa!" So you have to like be aware that the imposter syndrome is there and is really dangerous and it can't kill you, but it can feel like it can kill you. And you have to like look it in the eyes and like stare it down and be like, I know what you want. I know what you're trying to do. And really, ultimately, imposter syndrome is just your defense mechanisms trying to protect you from getting caught as a fraud.
Right.
And despite you having accolades and accomplishments and that kind of thing. So to me, oh my goodness, I discovered imposter syndrome maybe in 2017 or 18. And once I had a label for it and I knew that other people had it, because if someone else is talking about it, and actually somebody wrote a book on it. So what ended up happening was Valerie Young wrote a book called The Secrets Thoughts of Successful Women. And this guy named Stephen Gates, known as the Crazy One, did a podcast on the book. Once I discovered them, and I actually spoke to both of them in addition to teaching classes and courses about imposter
Oh,
syndrome.
wow.
and so supposedly I'm an expert on it, but I feel like an imposter syndrome.
Yeah,
Like, what do
I
I
mean,
even
why not?
know?
Why not add that
Yeah.
to the list?
So, and it didn't mean that I got rid of it. And it didn't mean, like, I tried to get rid of it by teaching about it. And I think it helped people, but it didn't help me because by teaching it to other people, I was trying to control it.
Mm,
And really, I wasn't changing how I related to it. And what I realized was I was feeding into it by doing the same things that I was doing my whole career, but doing it harder. And once I stopped feeding it by, so like there's I think 4 or 5 different kinds of imposter syndrome. And like mine is basically like the expert. I need to know everything about everything. So I literally have a digital library that's like 2 terabytes large right now. I have to have external SSDs to keep track of it, of all the resources in UX that I could ever have. And I thought if I just filled it up, that it would be, I'd get rid of the imposter syndrome. Well, it turns out you can't fill it up. And second of all, there's something called hoarding that
mm,
OCD people do. And I was digitally hoarding. And basically what I realized is I need to go from hoarding to just in time learning. So
yeah.
if I get a project where there's this thing that I've never done, I have to trust myself enough to know I'm a quick learner and I know how to ask for help and I know how to tell people that I've never done this before, but I can certainly try and do my best.